Which is a nice story because it happened to me that 35 years ago, I was a gardener as a kid, well, a young man, let's say, in a golf course. And a giant oak tree, I mean, really big oak tree, that had a 5-foot across trunk. It was struck by lightning in one night, and I got to work in the morning, and the tree was all over the place. It was completely blown apart, except there was this much bark left on the tree. Now, we're talking a tree that it would take 4 people to put their arms around it. And there was this much bark left on the tree. So we tried to save the tree. What do? I went out there, I covered it with tar, I covered that with burlap, I covered that with wires, and I put fertilizer all around the entire tree. And we're talking about a tree that had a 20-meter span across, right? 60-foot span. It was a live oak tree in Orlando, Florida. So, you know, these trees, it's not a little baby sapling. And we're trying to do everything we can to save the tree. And okay, it takes a long time for such a thing to rebuild itself if it could. I mean, giant pieces of bark were laying all over the ground. And so what happens? I go off, I buy a van, I go travel around America, I find Judaism and God in California, of all places, right? I lived in New Orleans, in New York, everywhere. I was riding and driving and picking up hitchhikers and having a good time because I wanted to experience life outside the little bubble I'd grown up in. And I ended up in California, I became religious, and then when I came back to Orlando the next time, I said, I've got to go see my tree. I wanted to see if the tree made it. This is 20 years after that lightning struck. And I got to the golf course and I took one of those electric carts, you know, because I had worked there, so I was still friends with the people who owned the place. I took the electric cart, I drove out to I think it was like the 14th hole on the back 9 of the golf course. And there was this giant tree. The entire thing had healed. It had created a whole new ring of bark around the tree. So I thought this was a good metaphor for me in my life because I felt like I'd come back to life through coming back to Hashem and coming back to the Torah and coming back to my Jewish roots. And here was this tree that came back from being struck by lightning. And so it was a good metaphor then. And now here we are on Tu B'Shvat, so many years after,